Hey folks, it's a gorgeous fall day here at Flock, and we think that this is going to be the last week where it's really warm. So we are out here and maximizing and using as much of the sunlight as possible. And today I'm going to be planting bulbs in pots. It's the perfect time to do that because it's fall and these will start to bloom in spring. So my goal is to show you how to plant bulbs in pots in a layered kind of lasagna fashion, how to plan that out, how I'm actually planning it out. It's not too sophisticated. And then the other element is to teach you some of the species and cultivars that I'm using. Maybe there's going to be some new ones in there for you. So I have two pots here, and I've already kind of pre-picked these out. There's many pots kind of off the side of the camera that I've been kind of trying to plan which plants go into what pot. But these two are both weather ready, so you could have them out in winter. But the downside of having these out in winter, if you're going to put bulbs in pots, is that if it gets too cold, and we're in a zone 5-6 here in the Finger Lakes region of New York, and it could get too cold, it could get too windy, and then your bulbs might fail. So the best thing to do, even if your pots are weather ready, is to put them maybe in a cold frame or a garage where it's a bit more protected from the elements. You don't want it to get above 50 degrees, which is 10 degrees Celsius, because then the bulbs might actually start to grow, or maybe you want to do that because you might want to force them. But for the most part, most of these bulbs are going to need somewhere between 12, sometimes up to 16 weeks of cold. So that needs that cold period in order for them to bloom really well. So again, I have this beautiful terracotta pot. It actually has a ginormous hole on the bottom here, and that'll be great for wanting to take some of the water away, wick some of the water away. And then I have this copper pot that I had found at my local auction center. I only got this for 15 bucks, and it already had some holes in the bottom, but I had Sonder the other day put in a hole right in the middle. And it was really funny because as he was doing it, it was a beautiful, almost like new copper again. But part of the reason why I got this was for the patina of it. It's just got that nice bronzy blue hue that matches kind of the meadow house vibe. And I have this plastic pot. This is kind of one of the tips I could give you, is that when you start to get into larger and larger size pots, you know, having to lug them from place to place, especially if you have some beautiful terracotta pots. I mean, there's of course like things that you could cheat. You could cheat on like with lava stones or fiberglass pots. They're a lot less heavy. But one of the things that you could do is you could use these nursery pots, and I just keep the good ones and upcycle the really heavy duty ones. And you could plant in there and leave this cashpo decorative pot somewhere else, and then just plant them in here and take these into your cold greenhouse or into your garage. The other thing I would say, that if it's not rodent protected, then you may want to put hardware cloth or something over the top of it to prevent any mice or rodents from getting in there, because if you're planting anything like tulips, for instance, they love tulip bulbs, they might gnaw on them, crocuses, things along those lines. So basically what I'm going to do is put in a layer of potting medium on the bottom. I'm going to do two different versions. Kind of the, I guess, the old school kind of way that you could do it is just get like any bulb catalog, and if there's bulbs that you order out of it, cut them and put it like in a scrapbook and say, okay, I want this bulb on top and these are the smaller bulbs. But essentially you're going to be putting the heavier, bigger bulbs that need more soil depth down below. And then on top of that, you're going to be, so say some have to go 8 inches down, and then you're going to have some bulbs that need to go 6 inches down, and some bulbs that go 4 inches down, and some bulbs that go 2 inches down. And you plan for the bloom time so that some of the early bulbs, and then you have mid-season bulbs, and then you have late-season bulbs. So you're essentially getting 2 to 3 months of bloom time out of your planter pot. So I personally like to plant perennials in my pots, and this will be another layer, another element that I'm going to do. So I think I'm just going to do pots just with bulbs. And once they're done, I could always take those bulbs out. I could plant them up elsewhere in the garden, and then I could put in some of my perennials or annuals or whatever you want to do. You could do the catalog way, but what I do is normally I just open up a PowerPoint or Keynote, and I find images of the plants that I want, and I'll put that up on screen for you to see. And that's how I basically match plants to pots, and I just have to determine like what pot I want to plant it in. I'm gonna add some potting mix, and I'm gonna add a little bit of perlite as well because I want this to actually be pretty well draining. This is not like a perfect fit. There is a gap in there, but I wasn't going to like route around and try to find the perfect planter pot for it, but I think this will be good enough. This pot is about 12 inches tall, so I want approximately about 3 inches of potting medium down there. And if you're forcing the bulbs and you want these plants to bloom indoors, because you know during the springtime you'll see narcissus like paper whites or hyacinths, and they'll sell them to you because they're just beautiful and you're seeing the flowers for the first time really early in the season. Well, they're basically forcing those bulbs. So those bulbs might just need that cold period for, some of the species tulips could go for 9 weeks, but up to 12 weeks, so say 3 months. And then you bring them on a sunny windowsill, maybe it's 50 to 60 degrees, and that starts to signal to the bulbs that they need to start to emerge. So I'm planting these towards the end of October now. So if I'm looking at maybe towards the end of January, I could start moving them out to a nice warm sunny spot. And it might not be warm enough outdoors to have them, but if I wanted to keep them like on an insulated porch or something of that nature, then that might be giving you the opportunity to see blooms really early in the season. Although some of the crocuses that I'll be planting in here, which will be the ones that will be towards the top of the pot, those start to bloom for us in the landscape around February, March, depending on if it's a warm February or March, which we have been having. First year that we moved here, first year we had snow until May, so we weren't that lucky. Perlite could be a little dusty, so just be mindful of that. If you're working on a really windy day or inside, you don't really want to be breathing it in so much. All right, so this one, I have a number of white flowering bulbs that I thought I would do in this because there's something about having this gritty patina, this verdigris patina, rusty verdigris patina, and then just having pure white bulbs growing out of this. So I have the deepest bulb that I would probably be planting here, and one of the later blooming ones is this Sapporo lily flowering tulip. It's a brilliant white, I think one of the more elegant tulips, and they more easily perennialize than some of the fancy flouncy tulips. And you could see, this is what the bulb looks like. So this is a nice healthy bulb. You see a couple here, you see another little baby growing off of here. And I have a number of these. So this is, let's see how roughly this is. This is a 9.5 inch to 10 inch pot. So I could probably fit, I would say 8 to 10 different tulips in here. You'll see that there is a round side and a flat side to the tulip. So this is probably another small tip that I could give you. I try to put the flat side towards the edge of the pot because that's where the leaf will come out and it looks a little fuller. So in this pot, it's a lot smaller and I don't have as many tulips to go in. So that's what I'll probably do is plant them a little bit further away from the pot and then have the leaf come out so it looks a little fuller. But with this one, I have 10 bulbs, so I could fit probably all of those in here. And so what I'm gonna basically do is just layer them down in there. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Just like that, flat side out. And check if any are, like this one's a little bit, it looks like it's got some type of mold on it, so I'm gonna put that one aside. I don't wanna take my chance with that one. That one I would, plant outside, but in this kind of environment, I don't wanna be planting a bad bulb and having the rest rot out, especially because I have so many different varieties in here. So I'm gonna plant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm gonna plant another one, 8. So that's how many I'm gonna plant in here. It's about as much as I could fit. All right, so again, we're kind of making a nice lasagna layer. So I have that layer. Now I'm gonna add some more potting medium on top of this. So I'm burying these bulbs. And the next bulb that I'm going to be planting is the narcissus. And I should say that these tulips will come out, they're late flowering tulips, so there's probably gonna be like towards end of April, beginning of May. This one I thought is very beautiful. And I've planted these in the landscape in the Meadow House Gardens, and these are called thalias. And this is a pure white narcissus, or daffodil, as people commonly call them. Petals are a bit more recurved. They're kind of like, as if like the wind is blowing through their petals. And they're a bit more tapered. So I think, again, much more elegant bulb. And I also have a few of these. I have one called, I don't know, XIT. I would pronounce it zit. That sounds gross. But this is Narcissus zit. And it only grows 5 to 7 inches. So there's slightly smaller ones, but again, I think I'm gonna do a combination of Thalia and the zit. And then I also have another one called the mini daffodil bulbicodium white petticoat. And this is 8 to 10 inches high, but they almost like have no petals. It just is like the center part of the flower. And it looks like a phonograph of sorts. And you can see that these are a lot smaller, so I would plant these slightly higher up in the soil substrate, because I'm trying to get to be like maybe 3 times the size of the bulb. So this would go 6 inches down from the soil top. So that's what I'm gonna be doing now. So I'm just gonna be layering it around. I'll probably add 4 Thalias. Then I'm going to add some of the XITs in between. And you can see inside here what that looks like. So I now have this other layer, and because those petticoats will emerge around the same time, but they're smaller, I'm gonna plant those around, and they'll probably come up around the same time as the other daffodils. And so I have 15 in here. And I'm gonna add another layer, and this is gonna be the penultimate layer before I put the top of the soil on. Because the smaller first emerging bulbs, they only need a couple inches of soil on top of them. So the next number of ones that I have are the Galanthus, and I also have crocuses. So this is Galanthus nivalis flore plano, and these get about 6 to 8 inches high. They're about the same size as the Narcissus petticoat that I just had planted, but I'm gonna plant them a little bit further up because these are not that much smaller than the crocuses, and they emerge really early. So these will emerge like right after winter, so very early spring. So I'm talking about like sometimes February, but into March. So I'm gonna add those. So the idea behind the layering is that you're just extending your season by planting within the same column of soil. And I had shared this when I was actually planting the Camassia bulbs in. Now this is Crocus Tomasianus albus. This is kind of an heirloom variety. It's from 1847. I only have 8 of these, and you can see that they're much smaller than the Galanthus. Not that much smaller, but I might actually just create one more layer on top of this. I'll bury this and put the crocuses on top. I think that will probably be a better move. And then here we go with the crocuses. And I have a different kind of crocus as well. And you could fit quite a lot of crocuses together. You know, you're trying to go maybe even just a bulbs width apart. And the next one I have is Miss Vane. And this is a type of crocus that also is white. So I'm gonna space these out a little bit better. And I have, I think 25 of these, so that's better because you could plant quite a variety. So, you know, with the tulips, I could only fit so many. And then with the crocuses, you could fit a heck of a lot more. So I'm gonna try to get these all in here. So the downside is that you're planting all these and you're like, oh, it would be great if it was really floriferous and they're all growing at the same time, but they're not gonna do that. They're gonna poking out their heads, depending on the warmth, in February and bloom all the way until May. So you have lots of different kinds of blooms, but not all happening at once. Now we're gonna cap it off with the soil, and you want just like about 2 inches on top. So this is basically your layered bulb cake. And again, you want to put this in a more protected environment. Again, if you have rodents or anything like that, you're going to want to cover this with, don't block the light, but you could, you know, cover it with, you know, some kind of hardware cloth tightly so that no rodent gets in there and eats the bulbs or messes around with the potting medium. And yeah, that's it. And basically you could take this out, move it around, and plan to have it in this one or some larger terracotta pot or whatever pot of your choosing. But that's essentially this one. And I'm going to show you the one that I'm most excited about, because I think the color palette for this one really, I guess it engaged me, I guess. And I'll show you which ones I'm going to be planting in here. And again, the goal for this is to create lots of layered blooms over the course of like basically February to May. And in this pot, I wanted to plant some of those darker brown maroon shades and also with lips of gold and yellow. Thought that would be really beautiful. And part of what inspired me was this Absalon tulip from 1780s. It's a broken tulip. So what that essentially means is that it has tulip breaking virus. And I have a whole episode on this, but we have tulips that basically have a virus that are no longer in the commercial trade, but these had been saved by Hortus bulborum. And they have this striations, feathery striations or variegations on the petals, where essentially the virus, which is this filamentous virus, breaks the anthocyanins or the colors within the petals. And so then you have like striations of whites and creams and yellows and darker shades. And the Absalon tulip is one of those tulips that actually have the virus. Now we have modern day tulips like the Rembrandt varieties that have striations and variegations, but they're a bit more, I would say, color blocky versus fine feathering. And with the virus, you never really know what kind of striations or colors you're gonna get. So the Absalon tulip has that kind of browny, maroony color, but with like striations of gold. And so I was like, wow, that's a really beautiful tulip. And then I have another heirloom variety called Prince of Wales from '63. And this one also has kind of this purplish maroon, less brown color, but I have two of those. So I don't have that many. That's why I wanted to use a smaller pot, because I only have 5 tulips. And if I go any larger, the pot is going to look a little gappy. So I'm going to plant those, and I'll try to get them just like this. And again, I'm going to do the flat side towards the edge of the planter pot, because that's where the leaf will come out, and then you'll get basically a fuller looking plant pot. So these are late blooming tulips, and a lot of the broken varieties are late blooming tulips, so you'll get them in kind of early to late May. All right, to go with that gold theme, now that I'm off the tulips, I'm going to go into the daffodils. Now, these daffodils are called Oxford Gold. I have a lot of them here, but I can't use all of them. So some of these will go into the garden. The Oxford Gold, they don't really have these petals. It just has the middle part, and I think that looks so cool. It almost looks like a phonograph. So I'm just gonna plant these all the way around. And I could probably fit like maybe 8 in here to 10. You can see some that are actually have the little green part coming out, so they probably got a bit warm and they're already thinking about starting to emerge. I hope I have enough space in this one. Okay, so the next one on the list is a Dutch iris. And this one is called Red Ember Dutch Iris. They only need to go 4 inches down into the pot, and you can see the size of them, so they're quite small. I have iris bulbs that are much larger than this, but these also have that kind of maroony brown color with elements of yellow gold in them. So again, just that shade, I'm going with this whole pot is going to be that theme, just like the other pot is going to be all white. I think I have 2 more layers that I want to do. All right, so the next one I have is 2 fritillarias. And this one's called Uva vulpis. And again, kind of that maroon color has elements of yellow. And then I have this one, and I'm gonna just give you Mykolaievsky. It's like, sounds like some Russian name. So I'm gonna add both of these. You could see that one is a lot larger than the other one, but I am going to plant them in the same column because at least I'm gonna keep the fritillaria together, and they have around the same bloom time. So I'm gonna plant these big ones around like this. And again, if I have too many of them, I'm not gonna force them all in the same pot. I'm basically going to plant some of these in the garden as well. We're down to our last layer of bulbs. And this one is Crocus Cloth of Gold. Now these are a gold variety of crocus with deep maroon red striations. So I don't have that many of them. So, and crocuses, again, I should have bought maybe 25 of these. So it'll be a little light. So I'll just make sure that I spread them out a bit more and give them their space, even though I could have gone more densely with these. But when I was buying these, I wasn't necessarily planning on putting them into pots. So I kind of changed my mind as I went along. All right, so there you go. We have both of our layered pots finished. I'll be doing more of these. And this is a little moist. The potting medium that I used had been a little bit moist, and that's good because I'm not gonna need to water it in. But you would wanna water it in a little bit, but just make sure it has good enough airflow that it's not building up moisture in here, because you can rot the bulbs. That's probably the biggest thing that could happen with this. So be mindful, but I would say it's better to be a little bit on the dry side than it is to be on the wetter side here. But I'm looking forward to this, this experiment. I'll be doing more. I have more pots, I have more bulbs coming, so that will be another project that I'm definitely going to be doing, probably off camera. But you get the gist of layering in a lasagna type layer so you could get multiple bulbs over the course of many months. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. If you've been enjoying these videos, give the channel a follow, tap the notifications button so you know when we drop the next video, and become a member of the channel to support our work. We'll be wrapping up the garden chores here in the next couple months and switching gears to more renovations and interviews around the area, so stay tuned here. We'll see you in the next video.